An unbiased fan talks about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know if I can actually title this video that, but in this video I'll be reviewing the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I quickly want to go on a little rant because Disney released the episodes 3 hours early but only warned us 1 hour ahead of time. So for people that are on the East Coast like me, I went to sleep at like 9 o'clock so that I could wake up at 3 a.m., have energy for the show. Then they put out a tweet at 11 p.m. Eastern time that the show will be releasing at midnight. I was getting calls all on my phone. People were saying, wake up, wake up. I didn't wake up until 2:30, so that's why this review is coming out a little bit late. I do apologize for that, but I'm gonna make it up to you guys because I have a reason why my review is different from everyone else's, and that is that I literally watched the prequels for the first time about a month ago. So my proposition is that I'm not biased because I don't have nostalgia for the prequels like a lot of other people my age. So this video will be containing spoilers for the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Also subscribe because I'll be making reviews every single week for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, so let's start with episode 1 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm gonna be honest, this was a chilling introduction. It was very sad, very heartbreaking, but I will say I thought it was a great setup to the show. My biggest issue with this show as a whole, which I do want to get off right away, is just the fact that it doesn't necessarily feel like an Obi-Wan Kenobi show as much as kind of The Mandalorian felt like a Mandalorian show. And that's my biggest issue with it because in general, I definitely felt like Obi-Wan Kenobi introduced a lot of new characters. Obviously, we had baby Leia. She drives the story, and I'll talk about her a little bit later. But as a whole, I don't know. This show, I was expecting more of what the Batman was for Robert Pattinson, where Robert Pattinson was on the screen like 98% of the movie. Again, that is a POV-driven movie. This show isn't necessarily that. I thought that they were going to focus more on, I guess, a character study of who Obi-Wan was, and that wasn't necessarily the case, especially when right off the bat in the first episode, we're faced with Obi-Wan's real life now 10 years after he stopped being a Jedi because of what he did with Anakin and all that kind of stuff. But even with that being said, I still wanted them to have more of a character study on Obi-Wan because as we learn at the end of the second episode, he does find out that Anakin is still alive, and that impact was still there in my opinion, and that's one thing I really loved about episode 2. But getting back to episode 1, I think that this average rating in the first episode primarily does come from the fact that they're telling the story in a very tight-knit area. It feels like they really just have a simple mission, and that's honestly been my issue with a lot of Star Wars, is that they take these great characters and they just put them in very simple stories. Even the original trilogy, the prequels, I'll talk about this more in my full Star Wars video, but it does feel like a lot of times it's these super interesting and very in-depth characters that are put in these super basic and honestly sometimes unappealing stories. But again, I want to go back to Leia really quickly. I thought it was cool how she drives the show. I was not expecting baby Leia to have this much of an impact on the show, and I'm honestly pretty surprised, and I'm happily surprised. I think it was a pretty good inclusion. Obviously, we also have Uncle Owen, that kind of stuff, where Obi-Wan still wants to take care of Luke and still look after him. Owen obviously doesn't want that. There's that one scene where the third sister puts the lightsaber up to Owen's neck. That scene had the tension out the roof, and I absolutely love that scene. And I love the Grand Inquisitor. I love the third sister. I love all of that. But I will say the acting from the third sister was not the best thing in the world. The character as a whole, very interesting premise. The way that the Grand Inquisitor took her in, and now she's rebelling against them. She wants to find Kenobi in order to put herself at a higher standard. I love all of that. That's all very interesting to me. But the acting isn't really selling me, and that's with almost every single role in the show so far, of course, other than Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'll also say I love the politics in this show regarding Leia, the princess, all that kind of stuff. How they were mentioning all that in the first episode. I was really intrigued by all of that. And then obviously our episode ends with Obi-Wan accepting the mission to go find Leia, and that's basically it for episode 1. I will say as a whole, episode 1, it definitely had better writing than episode 2, but that's not too high of a bar in my opinion. But also, I absolutely love the pacing of episode 1. I think it has near perfect pacing, to be honest. Episode 1 did not feel like it was long at all. Neither did episode 2 really, but I don't know what it was. Episode 1 just felt like it flowed perfectly from thing to thing to thing. Again, I wish it centered more around Obi-Wan, but we did get a little bit more of that in episode 2. So let's talk about episode 2. Again, this will contain spoilers for episode 2, but this episode starts really fast. He's already on the planet looking for Leia. Kind of skip a little bit of time from the last episode. Once again, I love the pacing of this show. I like how fast it's moving, even though it's not 100% centered around Obi-Wan. I will say again, I wish it was centered around Obi-Wan because there seems to be so much potential there. A character study on Obi-Wan Kenobi. I know I'm gonna rant about that a lot in the coming weeks, but I hope they kind of go in that direction, and they could, especially with the ending of this episode, which I'll get to in a little bit. But I do want to say I love how they're exploring the different areas of this planet, kind of like the fake Jedi with Kumail Nanjiani, and then we have the drug dealers, the kids, and that one scene where the daughter was like, that girl, the drug dealer girl was like, I was someone's daughter once too. That was absolutely heartbreaking. I just love the way in general how Star Wars explores these small crevices of these huge worlds, and I think this episode did it really good while still pushing our main story with him finding Leia. I also love the way that baby Leia, she influences Obi-Wan's powers, how she made him obviously get the Force back and stuff like that when she was falling off the roof. These smaller things are giving our main character a lot more development, and I really love the way they're doing it. Writing wise, I guess I like that. I will say it's a good show. The writing is good. I'm not gonna say I don't like the show. I very much enjoy it. I had a smile on my face most of the show. I really was loving it, but I don't know what it was, but the acting, especially in episode 2, was really taking me out. I do think it was the third sister, the Inquisitor, all that whole group. It was very iffy for me in terms of the acting. Also, the action in this episode was fairly mediocre. You could definitely tell when there were stand-ins. There's this one shot of Obi-Wan. I literally rewinded it like 3 times to make sure I wasn't seeing stuff, and I'm pretty sure it was a stand-in double. This episode felt very high budget, but at the same time, at some points, felt very cheap in the action. I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it was just some like small off-putting things that I didn't necessarily like. But now I do want to go to the ending of this episode because it was absolutely insane, where the third sister said, I'm gonna take you to Darth Vader, blah blah. Darth Vader wants to see you, blah blah. Anakin Skywalker is alive. That sent chills down my body, and Obi-Wan's reaction, especially after he got on the ship with Leia, that gave me chills. And again, as someone who just watched the prequels, who hasn't been invested in this relationship for 10 plus years now since the prequels came out, I am still very invested into this relationship. And I think that if the show in the next episode doesn't dive far enough deep into this relationship and doesn't show us enough of both sides, I think this show as a whole is screwed. I don't understand why this show is only 6 episodes when shows like Andor are getting 2 seasons with 12 episodes each. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited for Andor. You can check out my trailer reaction, which I already did. I'm actually very excited for it. But I will say I wish Obi-Wan had a few more episodes, as it could be a character study into Obi-Wan. Okay, I'm done saying that. You guys know what I think of these 2 episodes. I like the episodes. I think they're good episodes, but I definitely felt like they could have been better. Let me know what you guys thought of both of these episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the comments down below. Subscribe because I'll be covering this show in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.